pleasant morning to all. I bid you a most hearty welcome to today's edition of the Premier's monthly press conference. These press conferences are designed to bring a sense of openness and transparency to the Nevis Island administration. For those who are joining us for the very first time, this morning press conference will be conducted as follows. The Premier will give updates from the units, departments, and ministries within the Nevis Island administration, after which members of the press corps will be given the opportunity to ask their questions. In so doing, you're kindly asked to give your name and the organization, the media house that you represent, just in case we have to give follow-up information at the end of the press conference. You're kindly asked also to put your phone on mute so that you do not disturb the proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming to the podium the Honorable Premier of Nevis, Mark A.G. Brantley.
Thank you very much, Permanent Secretary Mr. Wakely Daniel, and good morning to members of the press and media who are here, and certainly all of those who may be listening via the various channels. I believe we are being carried live on radio stations on St. Kitts, Freedom FM, and also here in Nevis, of course, VON Radio, the voice of Nevis. I say thank you to the members of the press and obviously to NTV who are here with us on a monthly basis. This is the April edition of our monthly press conference, and I welcome one and all. Let me start by congratulating my friend and brother, Oscar King Astro Brown. He represented St. Kitts and Nevis at the recently held 2025 Caribbean Utilities Employees Association Calypso competition in Dominica and was crowned king. I say congratulations to the king for adding another crown to his long list of monarchies that he has won over the time. Congratulations also to Miss Abena Amri, Miss Hazel Francis, and Mr. Colin Duggins, Stapleton, for being the honorees at the recently held 25th anniversary Nevis Hearts and Hands Award Gala in New York. We say congratulations to them. Let me speak for a moment, members of the press and public who are listening, on the Ministries of Education, Library Services, Information Technology, Youth and Sports. The Nevis Public Library wishes to advise parents and guardians that registrations for the 35th Annual Library Summer Program will be held over the period May 1st to 31st, 2025. As part of this year's program, a small group of high school students, aged 13 to 16, will be engaged in a project Every Story Counts from July 14th to July 18th, where they will interview seniors and compile the stories. I think that's a very, very important initiative. Children 9 to 12 years old will attend from July 21st to 25th, and children 5 to 8 years old from July 28th to August 1st. All forms must be completed at the library. We are targeting 130 children over the 3-week period this year. Congratulations are extended to the Charlestown Primary School for winning the 2025 Bunny Limited Golf Limited Nevis Primary Schools Championship hosted by the Ministry of Education, Sports et al. The school is now the 6 peat champions, earning 16 gold, 15 silver, and 16 bronze medals. We also congratulate the Ivor Walters Primary School, who placed second with 16 gold, 11 silver, and 16 bronze medals, and the St. Thomas's Primary School Jaguars for placing third with 10 gold, 9 silver, and 8 bronze medals. Individual awards will be officially presented during the course of this week, and we commend all the students, coaches, staff, principals, and the ministry and department officials who made this possible. We, from all reports, have had a very successful staging of what we refer to colloquially as the mini Olympics. The St. Kitts Nevis and Anguilla National Bank Group of Companies is hosting a Youth Voices panel discussion on April 29th on the topic AI and Education, Preserving Human Agency in a World of Automation. The event will see 6 schools, each represented by a grade 6 student, engaging in presentations on the topic in a debate-style competition at 5 p.m. Nevis. At 5 p.m. Nevis will be represented by Advith Swaminathan, of the VOJN Primary School and Sharicia Latouche of the Ivor Walters Primary School. And so we ask, of course, the public to go out and to support our youth as they engage in a thought-provoking topic, AI and education, preserving human agency in a world of automation. And that, again, is on April 29th, 2025 at NEPAC, starting at 5 p.m. Charleston Secondary School, my alma mater, I'm proud to say, will be celebrating its 75th anniversary this year on 24th of May, 2025. And they, of course, will be hosting a series of activities throughout that month. Department of Education Interscholastic Spelling Bee will host its Intercolastic Spelling Bee competition. That is the 16th edition of that competition. All primary schools on Nevis will vie for the title of Spelling Bee champs in the morning session of the May 9th, and secondary schools will compete in the afternoon session. The department is delighted to again have on board the Lornett Mills Charitable Fund, HarperCollins Publishers, and the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank as sponsors for the event. The general public is invited to come on out and support our primary school students at 9 a.m. and secondary school students at 1 p.m. at NEPAC on Friday, 9th May. Now, I know that many of us have lost the art of spelling because we have these devices that spell for us. But I believe these initiatives are still very important, that we continue to do the fundamentals. And one of those, of course, is spelling. The Department of Youth hosted its annual Easter camp under the theme Tech Dynamos. The inspiring and action-packed experience was held from April 6th to 17th, primarily at the ETW Park. This year's camp focused on youth empowerment through technology, cybersecurity, and digital literacy. A total of 96 campers, aged 5 to 16, participated in the camp. Throughout the 2 weeks, campers were immersed in a variety of engaging and educational activities centered around technology and creativity. I believe this was a very important initiative, and I commend, of course, all those at the Department of Youth and Sports who continue to bring technology to the fore in our engagements with our youth. We also had a cricket Easter camp. The Department of Sports hosted a successful cricket Easter camp which engaged 45 young players between the ages of 8 and 11. The camp sought to develop the fundamentals of the game in preparation for the TDC Renarco Morton Primary School Championship. In addition to the daily on-field sessions, there were several speakers who covered various aspects of the game. These included our own former West Indies player, Keith Arterton, and he spoke on leadership and captaincy. Belinda Holloran, sports psychologist from Australia, who spoke on the importance of the mental side of the game. Dark Brown, Leeward Islands and West Indies physiotherapist, who spoke about the value of structured warm-ups and injury prevention techniques. And we thank our own from Brownhill, Keswin Archibald, and former West Indies great Carl Tuckett for spearheading this initiative. Commendations are extended from this podium to the following young cricketers who made the Leeward Islands under-15 team. We had Carice Farrell, vice captain, very important, Aidan Williams, Treyon Daniel, Rondre Daniel, Mikey Segolam, and Demore Prentice. All would have been invited to the under-15 camp that was held. And we also, of course, add Dejon James to our commendations. Young Dejon was a reserve player. So if you're following me, it means that Nevis had seven under-15 players at the Leeward level. I think that's quite commendable, and it speaks volumes to the work that is being done again at the Department of Youth and Sports. The Nevis under-19 team participated in the Leewards under-19 tournament in St. Kitts, and the Nevis finished 4th overall, with Amory Jones getting the 3rd most runs in the tournament overall, with 136 runs, averaging 27.2. The following players from Nevis were selected to the team of the tournament: Xavier Pemberton, Delroy Prentice, and Amory Jones. We congratulate them. We also congratulate 2 Division players in Jaden Carmichael and Jamie Cornelius, who have been selected to participate in the Cricket West Indies Breakout T20 League representing the Leeward Islands Thunders. I wish both youngsters well. I know them well. But I want to say that Jamie promised me a few centuries. So I'm calling on him from this podium to deliver on his promise. Cricket West Indies T20 Blaze Tournament in St. Vincent. Let me congratulate here Roselle Liebert, Sanelda Willett, Melissa Clark, and Davernique Maynard for their selection to the Leeward Islands women team that is contesting the Cricket West Indies T20 Blaze Tournament in St. Vincent. We also, of course, congratulate our own Charlene Martin, who is the team manager. Charlene lives in Cherry Gardens. I think we all know her well, and she has done great things and continues to do great things in cricket. The St. Kitts Nevis Carifta team departed the Federation on April 18th to participate in the 2025 Carifta Games in Trinidad. The Nevis contingent was seen off by the Ministry of Education and Sports personnel here on Nevis. The St. Kitts Nevis team captured 3 bronze medals during Carifta 2025. We wish to highlight the Nevisians who were part of the team. Abhijay Nemdari, he finished 4th in the under-17 javelin. Kezia Phillip, shot put under-17 girls, performed creditably. Najeev Kelly ran a personal best in the 1500 meter under-17 boys. Kimani Newton competed in the 800 under-17 boys. Udell Wisdom placed 5th in the under-20 shot put. Najeev, Abija, Kimani were also on the 4x400 under-17 team that made the finals. We say, of course, thank you to the athletes, their coaches, and SKN Athletics for supporting the young athletes, and we look forward to their continued growth, development, and success in the future. Let me extend, ladies and gentlemen, warm congratulations to young Alger Newton, former Deputy Director, Department of Sports, who has been promoted to the position of Director, Department of Sports, effective May 1st, 2025. Mr. Newton has worked diligently in the execution of his duties, and we want to wish him every success. I feel especially proud because from this rostrum I've been able to announce from time to time various people who have been promoted, and you will find that there's a consistency. They're all young people. Alger is a young person. I remember when he would have left and traveled on scholarship to the J.C. Foster College in Jamaica to study, and he has now been back with us, and he has moved up through the ranks to the point where at his youthful age, he is now the Director of Sports in Nevis. We continue not only to talk about empowering our youth, but actually demonstrating that empowerment. The Disaster Management Department has officially commenced preparations for the upcoming 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. Early predictions from the Colorado State University suggest an above-average hurricane season with 19 named storms. 9 could become hurricanes, 4 of which could become major hurricanes. As part of the disaster management efforts, emergency shelters have been thoroughly inspected, and necessary remedial repairs are being currently undertaken to ensure their readiness. Shelter and management training. We are pleased to announce that shelter and shelter management training has been successfully completed. That was done 24th to 25th April, with 16 individuals receiving comprehensive training. This initiative is crucial for ensuring that our shelters are managed effectively during emergencies. In addition to shelter preparations, we have completed school safety training for early childhood educators, and that was done on 7th to 8th April. This training aims to enhance the safety protocols in schools, ensuring the well-being of our youngest and most vulnerable citizens during hurricane events. Looking ahead, the Nevis Disaster Management will conduct training for individuals responsible for initial damage assessment and the damage assessment needs analysis during the month of May. This training is vital for accurately assessing the impact of hurricanes on the productive and social sectors and determining the necessary responses. We appreciate very much the community's support and cooperation as we work diligently to prepare for the hurricane season. Together we can ensure the safety and resilience of Nevis. Let me go on record, members of the press and public, to congratulate the Honorable Spencer Brand on his leadership, and of course Mr. Brian Dyer on his leadership at disaster management, because as you can tell, Nevis is out of the blocks early. Each year, we ensure that from very early in the year, we start the necessary preparations. We prepare, and we pray to God that we won't need to utilize what we have prepared for, but we prepare. And of course, we ensure each year that we are in an advanced state of readiness for any storm or other natural disaster that will come. But we pray, and we invite everyone to pray, that we will again this year be saved the ravages of any storms or other natural disaster. Public Works Department, we are undertaking some works at the supply office in Pinnes, and we continue with those works. We are also at the finishing stages of renovating the old water department office spaces. I'm told that all that's left there now is some painting and tiling to be done. We are also doing some work at Government House, which, as you know, is the official residence of our Deputy Governor General and offices of our Deputy Governor General, and we are fixing some issues there associated with water intrusion from the roof parapet and windowsills. We also completed, and in fact I visited it myself yesterday, the drainage enhancement project in Brownhill at the bottom of what we call Wilkinson Road. That, I think, is a very important project because over the years, residents, they have complained that when it rains, they have flooding, significant flooding in that area. And so I again commend Minister Brand and his team and the excellent work that Public Works has been undertaking in order to remedy the situation there at Brownhill. Good news, ladies and gentlemen, that on the 7th of April, the Public Works Department mobilized works on Morgan's Estate, Brown Pasture Road. So far, clearing and grubbing works have been done, and the Nevis Water Department is currently laying a new water distribution line. The actual road construction will commence immediately after completion of the water mains installation. I want to pause there for a moment, because this is a road that we have been repeatedly reminded by residents in the area needs to be done. It is, unlike other areas on Nevis where people complain that their roads might be a little bumpy, in this instance, the road had been continually washed away. The residents had, in fact, sent us a petition. And it was so critical because many were arguing that if there was an emergency, that the ambulance or other emergency vehicles could not traverse that road. I have been on that road myself in an SUV, and it was almost impossible to traverse it. And so I believe that this is relief that is long overdue to the people who are in that Upper Brown Pasture, Morgan's Estate area. And I am grateful that we have started that project and that relief is now coming. Consistent with our approach on these projects, once we're doing roads, we upgrade our water in the area at the same time. And so that is exactly what we're doing. We are upgrading the water mains in that area. And so we ask, of course, the residents to continue to be patient with us. We are now moving, and we will get that project done in short order for them. We are also undertaking the fencing of a private property in Butler's Village. And I want to explain that quickly, because you may well ask, why is government fencing private property? The property was used as a stockpile and storage area throughout the entire span of the Butler's Road reconstruction project. As you know, we were able to deliver that project, finalize it, just I think about a year ago, sometime last year. The fencing works at the property was part of the agreement that we made with the owner. So we used their property throughout the 2 years or so, 18 months that project lasted, and part of that was when we were done, we would restore their property and fence it for them, including what has become critical, which is the construction of a retaining wall for the protection of the road and of the property. So if you see government workers there, it is because that was the agreement that was arrived at, and that property owner kindly allowed us to use their property throughout the duration of the construction period for the storage of materials and equipment that was used on that road. World Day for Safety and Health at Work is celebrated on the 28th day of April each year. In commemoration of this day, the Department of Labor will host its second Occupational Safety and Health seminar on the 29th day of April at the Nevis Disaster Management Conference Room on Long Point Road. This year's theme is Revolutionizing Health and Safety, the role of AI and digitalization at work. And so we expect, of course, attendees to be there. We are going to cover areas like mental health, ergonomics, disaster preparedness, occupational safety and health, environmental health, planning insurance, and the Protection of Employment Act. All of that will be discussed there. And again, we continue on a relentless march to educate our public and to engage with our stakeholders in a positive way. The Boys and Girls of Class Etiquette Camp was held at the Charles L. Walters Community Center from Monday, April 7th to Thursday, 17th April. The purpose of the camp was to provide a fun, engaging way to teach children valuable social skills, table manners, and communication techniques. The camp was focused on building confidence, respect, and social awareness, preparing our children for various social situations. I am happy to report that we had 9 participants, not as many as we would have liked, but the facilitators said that it turned out that having that small number allowed them to be more hands-on with the participants. And we have had very good feedback, not only from the participants, but from their parents. And we continue, of course, to engage in educating our young people. And etiquette is still very important. Etiquette is still very important. Sometimes we live in a society now where people forget that good manners is still very important. We used to say when I was a child that manners will get you around the world without a cent. And little things, good morning, good afternoon, standing in line, holding a door for someone, all of those. Even sometimes driving on the road, etiquette is important. How do you drive? How do you conduct yourself? How do you dress? How do you go about your business? It is all very important. And so these are efforts that we are making to get with our children and to impart those skills which are important for life to them. The Department of Community Affairs is thrilled to announce the winner of the Community Development Month slogan competition. Out of the 9 slogan entries, Kedgel Smitten has captured the spirit of community unity and progress with his inspiring slogan, Together we grow, together we thrive, our community, our pride. He will receive a cash prize of $250, and we say congratulations to young Kedgel Smitten. We are inviting the entire Nevis to be part of Community Development Month. We are inviting you, your friends, family, and colleagues to join us as really we celebrate our community under that theme, Together we grow, together we thrive, our community, our pride. It's going to be a month-long celebration, and we invite you to participate. Some of the big activities, of course, we have a church service, the Jessup's Seafood Fiesta. We're going to have a podcast, which is something new, Caribbean Migrant Masculinities, and that will be on Thursday, 8th May. The Department of Community Development, in collaboration with the Department of Gender Affairs, will be hosting a podcast entitled Caribbean Migrant Masculinities. This will be held at the Malcolm Guichard Recreational Park at 10 a.m. And it's intended to be a powerful podcast discussion that dives into the challenges that migrant men face. We have a floral arrangement workshop, and the facilitator for that is none other than Mrs. Vernerine Isaac, who for many years did this at the Four Seasons Resort. We are going to be having a beginner's auto body repair training workshop, jumbo sale, community cares, food drive, and distribution. And let me spend a moment to talk about that. In response to the rising cost of food due to global inflation, we have decided to host a food drive. At the heart of every strong community is compassion. And that's why the Department of Community Development is hosting the community food drive. We are kindly soliciting the public's support by donating non-perishable food items and toiletries, such as canned goods, rice, pasta, cereal, oatmeal or cream of wheat, sugar, milk, toilet paper, soap, and things of that nature. Everyday products that people use. This food drive will run from April 15th to May 23rd 2025. Food items can be dropped off at the main office for community affairs, and the target is to get at least 5 persons per parish in the first instance. We want to thank Rams Supermarket because Rams has been assisting us with collection, and there will be a bin at the supermarket for drop-off. So members of the press, when you go to Rams, just drop off something in that bin. It could be some toilet paper, some tins of something, but help us. And we ask the members of the public to do likewise. And at the end of the day, this is an outreach effort to the community. And through community affairs, we will benefit in each parish at least 5 persons who are in need of that assistance. And so we see it as an opportunity to get together. There is also, of course, an important event, the Nevis Multicultural Heritage Festival. This, again, is an innovation that this government has introduced. And this year, at the Nevis Multicultural Heritage Festival, we are taking your taste buds on a delicious journey across the Caribbean and all the way to Africa. This exciting event is slated for Saturday, May 31st at the MJR Park, beginning at 12 p.m. Get ready to sample bold, flavorful dishes from countries like Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Dominica, Dominican Republic, St. Lucia, St. Kitts Nevis, and beyond, plus rich, authentic cuisine from Botswana, Kenya, Nigeria, Ethiopia, and more. The idea behind this really is to bring people together. We understand that Nevis has now become a melting pot with many people living here from other countries, not only those in the Caribbean, but countries farther afield. And so we are inviting everyone to sign up for this. And the idea really is that the public should have an opportunity to sample dishes, cuisine, and get a little piece of the culture from these various countries. So if you want to taste jollof rice from Nigeria, you should go there. If you want to enjoy, I don't know, saltfish, what they call it, Accra in Trinidad and Tobago, you can go there. The pepper pot from Guyana, you can go there. The sancoche, I think they call it in Dominica, you can go there. The paella from the Dominican Republic, or any of those dishes. Goat water from Nevis, because we have the best goat water. St. Kitts, what St. Kitts is going to cook? Something else? St. Kitts is going to cook something else. But we're going to have some good times, and we invite everyone to go and have a look. I am not familiar with Kenyan and Botswanan and Ethiopian food, so I can't speak to those. But the idea really is to bring people together, and we hope to have a fun-filled day. And general admission is only $5, and you're asked to go and sample this multicultural heritage festival. I think that it really is a tremendous, tremendous innovation, and I want to thank, of course, the Honorable Janelle Nisbet and her entire team for the hard work that they continue to put in. As I'm speaking of the Honorable Janelle Nisbet and her team, let me move now to the critical area of health. The Mental Health Mentorship Camp Summary, Youth Mental Health. I thought that this was a tremendous innovation because the Youth Health Mentorship Camp was hosted by the Health Promotion Unit and led by Dr. Hadassah Willett Sargent and Dr. Tivon Brown. It was held from April 7th to 17th at the Gender Affairs Conference Room in Nevis. 19 enthusiastic participants gained hands-on experience in essential clinical skills, including basic life support, measuring blood pressure and blood sugar, conducting urinalysis, and interpreting body composition scans. These skills prepare them to assist at health screenings and gain real-world exposure. Now imagine these are young people going into this camp and learning how to do some of these things. It's important because as we will now rely on them when we do our pop-up screenings all around the island. But imagine that your youngsters now know how to do these things and can take those skill sets into the home. So when mommy or daddy needs to get their blood pressure checked or needs to get their blood glucose checked, these young people are now equipped with the skills to assist them. We also took the youths to a camp in St. Kitts where they would have toured the St. Kitts Biomedical Research Foundation and Windsor School of Medicine, which offered them greater insight. Throughout the program, our students interacted with local healthcare professionals and shadowed mentors in their fields of interest. The initiative promoted personal growth, built confidence, and inspired a passion for health-related careers, underscoring a strong commitment to youth development and future healthcare workforce planning. I want, again, members of the press and public, these things are not random. These initiatives are calculated initiatives, well thought out initiatives. And here we are encouraging our young people, and we had 19 participants. And from that, we are hopeful that we will nurture their interests in medicine, in healthcare. We know that healthcare is a vast array of services. We are accustomed to the doctors and the nurses, but we have technicians, we have people who are involved in education, we have nutritionists, we have people involved in, natural healing and massages and physiotherapy. There's so many opportunities. Labs and lab work. What they call it? Phlebotomy? Phlebotomy is the word, I think. These are things which we are encouraging and immersing our young people in it, allowing them to rub shoulders with professionals is only intended to encourage them. We keep complaining that we do not have enough people in our healthcare sector. We keep complaining that we have to import doctors and import nurses. These are calculated, well thought through initiatives that are designed to say to our young people, there are opportunities in the healthcare sector, and we suggest that you take these opportunities on and become a healthcare professional. The Lesser Antilles Medical Assistant Team, Lamat, that mission concluded on Friday, April 4th, with a closing ceremony on St. Kitts. The Nevis leg of the mission featured a dedicated team comprising 13 personnel from the United States Air Force and 6 personnel from the Taiwan Taipei Veteran Hospital. A wide range of healthcare services were delivered across the island during this collaborative initiative. At the Accident and Emergency Department, consultations were provided to 27 patients. Audiology screenings, that is, to check your hearing, were conducted at the Brownhill Health Center, where a total of 196 clients, ranging in age from 1 month to 98 years, received care. That is simply amazing. 196 patients, ranging from 1 month to 98 years in age, received care during this audiology or hearing exam screenings that were done. Notably, 39 clients were fitted with hearing aids, significantly enhancing their quality of life. Dental services were also offered by them. We had 101 dental examinations, 42 fill-ins, 21 extractions, and 57 cleanings. These services were provided to both children and adults, including residents of the island's 2 nursing homes. Beyond the direct medical care provided, the mission yielded numerous benefits for local health facilities. These included invaluable knowledge exchange between international and local healthcare professionals, as well as the donation of essential medical supplies from both the United States and Taiwan teams. This marks, ladies and gentlemen, the second time that the Lamat Mission has been hosted in the Federation, and the Ministry of Health is deeply appreciative of the continued partnership. We look forward to strengthening this collaboration in the years ahead to further enhance healthcare delivery on the island of Nevis. The Department of Gender Affairs, in collaboration with its partner, the St. Kitts Nevis Fire and Rescue Services, Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, Nevis Health Promotion Unit, and the Department of Community Development, held a free men health screening on Saturday, April 26, at the eastern end of the Vance Amory International Airport parking lot. The event consisted of free health screenings, educational sessions, games, and entertainment, and sought to encourage fathers, sons, brothers, uncles, all men, to come out, get informed, get screened, and take charge of their health. You know I've been preaching for some time from this rostrum that we need to know our status and take charge of our health. The professionals are telling me that men are in a particular risk category because for whatever reason, our men, maybe we feel we're macho, we're not going and checking up on our health. Men carry a lot of stress, a lot of strain. A lot of men are providing for families. They have the difficulties. And oftentimes it is said that there is not sufficient support systems and mechanisms in place for our menfolk. One of the things, however, that men can do to protect themselves is to ensure that they get regular checkups. I, ladies and gentlemen, continue to lament that some men end up with advanced prostate cancer, for example, because we've introduced for years now prostate screening. We have invited our menfolk to go and get tested. And prostate cancer, I'm told, is one of those cancers that is 100% curable if caught in time. And so we ask our menfolk out there, please take advantage of these opportunities to know your status, to check your health. Cut back on the drinking of alcohol, cut back on the smoking, engage in some exercise, and eat moderately. These are important, simple lifestyle changes that could make a huge difference to delaying the onset of disease. And so we invite our menfolk yet again to take advantage of this, and our health approach, the whole ethos of our approach to health is that it is far cheaper for you to stay healthy than it is for you to be treated for a disease. If you, for example, can prevent the onset of diabetes or hypertension, it is far easier to do that than to eat and drink whatever you want, and then for the next 20, 30 years you have to be on medication to deal with hypertension or to deal with diabetes. And we know that these are gateways to things like renal failure. So when people say, oh, we need to invest in dialysis, I agree. But we also need to encourage our people to do some of the lifestyle changes that would help them not to need dialysis, to put them in a position where they would be healthier and we can delay the onset. As a child, I remember down Hanley's Road, we used to be told that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that is still true. In the context of healthcare in Nevis, we say $1 of prevention is worth $100 of cure. So let us continue to preach that message, that knowing your status, taking care of your health is important. A lot of us defer. We delay taking care of ourselves. We say, I'm going to go next week. I'm going to go next month because I have this to do and I have that to do. We should all know, because it's a truism, that without your health, nothing else matters. And we need healthy, productive people if we are to push this island forward. And so I encourage menfolk, again, to take advantage. I encourage all of us, but menfolk in particular, whom we are told are shy, don't like to go to the doctor, like to have a pain in their chest, pain in their foot, they say it's gas. That is the constant refrain that you hear from our menfolk whenever they have a pain. So it's important that we take charge. The Health Promotion Unit, in collaboration with Community Nursing Services, also completed a diabetes symposium, which was held on World Health Day, April 7th, at the St. Paul's Anglican Church. The purpose was to introduce the community to the recently launched CARFA Nutrition Toolkit Guidelines for the management of diabetes in primary care. 30 participants attended and benefited from nutrition and healthy eating presentations, educational session on diabetic food care, and interactive physical activity demonstrations. So again, we continue. Education, education, education. Know your body, know your status, get checkups regularly, go to your doctor. Education, education, education. Let me move to our eye clinic, which has been quietly one of the most successful aspects of healthcare on the island of Nevis. The first session of the 2025 Nevis Eye Clinic program would have commenced on April 14th. To date, 31 cataract surgeries have been successfully completed. I believe that's important. From April 14th to now, 31 successful cataract surgeries have been done right here in Nevis at the Alexandra Hospital, including one these medical terms. This looks like trichiasis, which is an eyelash removal. I'm not sure what that is, but that's the note that I have. Eyelash removal surgery and 2 prosthetic eye placement. Of note, ladies and gentlemen, and I feel particularly proud of this, that assisting with all of these procedures was none other than our own from Bath Village, Dr. Kentisha Daly. She's a second-year ophthalmology resident in Cuba, and she would have gone back to specialize. You know, I have been encouraging for some time now our young doctors to consider going off to specialize and coming back, because we have a large number of what we call general practitioners, but we have very few specialists, and we need surgeons, we need gynecologists, we need internists. And young Kentisha Daly would have taken up the challenge, and she's doing ophthalmology, and she's already putting her skills to work, even though she's not yet qualified in terms of having the final qualifications as an ophthalmologist, by working with those who are coming here. I want to join the ministry in extending appreciation to Dr. Catherine Smooth. She will be retiring after some 8 years of dedicated service to this program. And Dr. Smooth, if you're listening, we owe you a debt of gratitude. And we say thank you for your service over this past 8 years. I know that the ministry would have presented a token of our sincere appreciation. Ladies and gentlemen, some exciting news about the Nevis Film Commission. You haven't heard me talk about films much lately, because we have continued to work. A lot of that work has been happening behind the scenes. But we are now in a position to launch the Nevis Film Commission, and that will be done on Sunday, 18th May at 4:30 p.m. at NEPAC. We'll have the official launch of the Nevis Film Commission, a celebration of creativity, storytelling, and the vibrant future of film on Nevis. There will be a special screening on that day, and so I'm inviting one and all. And that special screening will allow you to get a behind-the-scenes look at the making of the groundbreaking Broadway hit Hamilton. There'll be a live question and answer with director and producer Alex Horwitz immediately following the screening. Don't miss an exclusive conversation with the filmmaker himself. You'll also have the opportunity to win 2 round-trip tickets between Nevis and St. Thomas, courtesy of Cape Air. They're up for grabs, plus a 2-day night stay at Mount Nevis Hotel, including breakfast. There will be entertainment and refreshments on hand. And you can visit the Film Focus Nevis Facebook and Instagram pages from the 5th of May, or by going to www.filmfocusnevis.com for details on how to register for a chance to win. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when we announced that we would pursue a film festival in the heart of film industry, in the heart of COVID, many scoffed, said it was not possible, said it was pie in the sky. But we believe that where there's a will, there's a way. And we persisted. And I'm very proud that through a partnership with MSR Media, we were able to produce some 8 movies on Nevis, and a 9th movie was done on St. Kitts. Those movies have now been released for public consumption. And in fact, it was only, I think, a week or 2 ago on social media, on Facebook, that one young woman said that her mother was watching The Island, one of the movies that was filmed here. And so here we are again, continuing on that march with film as an industry, setting up and launching our film commission on the island of Nevis, and announcing to the world that we are here and that we're open for business in relation to film. We have had the visit of several film producers. We have not had anything concluded that we can announce, but certainly we continue to put in the work, and we expect that this aspect to our economy, as we continue not only to talk about diversification, but to realize diversification, that aspect will continue to grow and develop. And so again, we will have the official launch. All members of the press are invited, and it will be on Sunday, 18th May, 4:30 p.m. at NEPAC. And during the launch, we will show the behind-the-scenes, Hamilton's America, behind-the-scenes look at the making of the groundbreaking Broadway hit Hamilton. And we will have on hand the producer, Alex Horwitz, who will answer your questions. And so it looks like it will be a grand affair there at NEPAC. Some updates from tourism. The island of Nevis, our island of Nevis, was recently featured in Rolling Stone, UK, and we were proudly featured in that publication, which is one of the world's leading cultural and lifestyle publications. That article in Rolling Stone shone a global spotlight on our island's rich cultural heritage, vibrant community, and authentic Caribbean charm, positioning Nevis as a must-visit destination. The Nevis Mango Festival will happen this year from July 4th to 6th. Preparations are well underway for this Mango Festival, set to be one of the largest and most exciting editions to date. Tickets are now on sale with an early bird special available until May 9th, and we encourage everyone to visit the official website and social media channels to secure tickets and stay updated on the festival schedule. The website is www.nevismangofest.com, and on FB, Facebook, and IG, Instagram, we're at Nevis Mango Festival. So we encourage people to go on, look and see what's happening. A tremendous level of excitement is out there already for our Mango Festival, which has now become a mainstay here in its 11th year on the island of Nevis. I'm also pleased to say that we had record-breaking participation this year for our cross-channel swim. That swim from Nevis to St. Kitts, it's an iconic bucket list global event now. Open water, open ocean swim from Nevis to St. Kitts. And this year we saw 478 swimmers participating. I'm told that 500 swimmers registered, but in the water on the day, we had 478 swimmers. The remarkable turnout is testament to the growing popularity. Now that swim has been taken over by Jane Hansen, and I have said to Jane, not only does she have my commendations, my congratulations, and my support, but I also want to see the swim get to 1,000 participants. That, for me, is a sweet spot. And so we're working on that. And just so the public knows that the swim this year attracted so many people, because these are the actual swimmers, but remember they come with families, friends, supporters, that we had people staying at hotels on St. Kitts. And so the morning of the swim, boats had to be coming from St. Kitts to Nevis to bring over. So I say that because sometimes people don't quite appreciate that these events are national. They generate national economic activity and an economic boost. All those people would have perhaps traveled through the RLB in St. Kitts. Where is the departure tax being paid? In St. Kitts. Who are the taxis and the operators who they'll take to and from? St. Kitts. If they go over for a day trip or tour or restaurant, St. Kitts. And in this case, they stayed at Marriott and they stayed at Park Hyatt and hotels on St. Kitts. And the reason, because sometimes I know our Nevisian people get a bit cantankerous with me, the reason is that Nevis was full. Nevis was full. There was no room in the inn. And that is why they had to stay, some people, on St. Kitts. But the bigger point is that a lot of these initiatives benefit both islands. And I think that we ought to see it in that vein, because whilst it's a Nevis event, it was conceptualized and implemented here on the island of Nevis. It has now become a global event that benefits both islands. Let me advise those in the tourism sector, specifically the hotels, guest houses, and restaurants, that our tourism development levy, or our tourism tax as it's referred to, that has been increased by Act of Parliament, which will go into effect as of June 1st, 2025. It is currently at 2%, and it will be increased by an additional 1% to 3% as of the 1st of June. Now, this is the money that is raised to support the marketing of the island of Nevis, so far as tourism is concerned. And so we would have gone to the House, we would have passed the necessary legislation, very, very cursory legislation in terms of, I think it was just a one-liner, but it generated hours of conversation and debate. because some did not seem to understand that it is not a tax on the hotel or the restaurant or the guest house. It is, in fact, a tax on the consumer. That is, the person who stays at the hotel, at the guest house, or eats at the restaurant. And all that the guest house owner, the business operator, is doing is collecting that tax, which they then pay over to the government. So if your bill at your restaurant is 100 EC dollars, you used to pay $2 in a tourism and development levy, and you will now pay $3 EC if your bill is $100. So the changes are actually quite nominal. I would also like to emphasize here today, as I did when we were in the House on this matter, that we had consultations with the hotel sector and the restaurant sector, and we had no difficulty, they had no difficulty with the increase by 1%, because it is what they may call de minimis. It is negligible, that increase. And so a lot of the hoopla that I heard about it, I didn't quite understand, because if the businesses understand what is afoot and they have no difficulty, I'm not sure why some politicians were making the most noise, which demonstrated that they did not in fact understand what in fact we were seeking to do. So this is not the business having to pay this tax, the business merely collects it. It's like the VAT. They collect and pass on. They collect this tax and pass it on to the government. And as I said, after, I believe this was introduced in 2014, if memory serves. No, not 2014, 2012, forgive me. This 2% was introduced. It's now been 13 years, and so we're increasing it nominally to 3%, and that goes into effect on the 1st of June. Now you may ask, why the 1st of June? And again, coming out of our stakeholder consultations, many of them said that they already had groups that were booked and would have booked, and the cost quoted to them would have been based on the 2%. And so we said, okay, let us not implement it for this season. Let us implement it starting in June, which will then impact the upcoming season. So all of this was done through consultation with the stakeholder group, which is our hotels, guest houses, and restaurants. And so we look forward to that increased revenue to fund the activities of the NTA. Note as well, ladies and gentlemen of the press, that this government has been quite deliberate. Where we have to increase taxes, that we have sought to shield the local population as much as we can from those increases. So the other tax increases that we did this year is that we increased the costs of the financial services products that are being offered. And we know that many local people are not using those products. So again, the burden is passed on to those who are coming in, the visitors, those who are using the jurisdiction internationally. That's what we've sought to do in terms of shielding our people locally, but at the same time generating additional revenue for the number of demands that are on the government. Tourism Awareness Month, Exposition Nevis, that is going to happen in May of 2025, and we're going to have a number of events as usual: environmental cleanup campaign, Jessup Seafood Fiesta, Tourism Radio Quiz, Heritage Village Open Day. We've introduced something this year, quite interesting, called the Scenic Island Tour, where you will, for 100 EC dollars, you'll get on a safari and tour Nevis and enjoy lunch at one of our beautiful restaurants. We have the Bank of Nevis Tourism Youth Congress, which is a regular event. And of course, as we know, Nevis is the current reigning champion of the CTO Youth Congress in the person of my junior minister of tourism, young Kiana Warner. We're also going to have a night at Passions. You know, there's quite a famous restaurant now there in Cox called Passions. I hope my good friend Karen is listening. She gave me plenty of trouble sometimes. I hope she's listening. Karen, we're proud of you and what you're doing there at Passions. So there's going to be a night at Passions Bar and Grill and entertainment by Garlic. That's a new activity as well. And we have a wellness fair at where? The Bath Springs, of course, and open day at New River. All of these are new activities, and we anticipate that these activities are going to do quite well and will be activities that the public will be excited by and participate in. Let me address a little ticklish matter. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, members of the public, the island administration has invested significantly in upgrades at our tourism venues, at our various locations around the island. We have invested significantly in ensuring that the visitor experience and the experience for our locals is enhanced. And one of those significant investments was done at the Bath Stream and Bath Hotel. In fact, it's continuing, because we're now working on the old Bath Hotel as well. The idea really is to capture the brilliance of that particular area, capture the history that is there and all that is on offer. We were forced to introduce, after we had invested significantly, in fact, I believe that the cost of those investments was close to 800,000 EC dollars or somewhere in that range. And as I said, investments are ongoing. We have added staff, cleaning staff, security, management. We've done all that. And so we now thought that it was appropriate that for a site that significant that there was a charge. And we introduced a nominal charge of $5 for visitors. I can't begin to tell you how many of our local divisions have given us problems. And I just don't understand why it is so difficult for some to appreciate that it takes money to upkeep these sites. All around the world, if you go to St. Kitts and you go to Brimstone Hill, and I may not even go all around the world, let me go 2 miles away to St. Kitts, you have to pay to go in. I was in Europe last summer, and to visit an historical site there, my wife and I, it cost us 30 plus euros each. And I believe the last time I checked, that was over 100 EC dollars each. And so I just want our people to understand that heritage has to be preserved, but we need to participate. And look at what we did at the Bath Stream. We said for our own nationals, St. Kitts and Nevis, it is free, F-R-E-E. But $5 was the nominal charge that we introduced for visitors. You know what started to happen, members of the press? Bus drivers and tour operators with the visitors, you know what they do? They went into Bath Village and went around the back way to try and get their people into the Bath Stream for free. We had to run a chain to stop them from going in that, to go into Bath Village and come around in order to access it for free. I mean, help us. The product is being lifted, the product is being elevated, and your visitors, the people that you have in your taxi, taking them around, those people are going to now have something that they can enjoy much more than before. So help us to upkeep it, instead of trying to evade. We've had instances down there where we've had, of course, to put up a barrier, because as people come in, you ask, are you local, etc., and so you determine who can be free and who has to pay. And abusing the staff and carrying on, they belong to us, and of course it belongs to us. And the government has maintained that by saying it will be free to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. But understand that we're putting things in place to make it a better experience for everybody. We have had a challenge, and I say it here, of some people deciding that they must bathe in the stream naked. Adults. And they say, oh, that's how we're accustomed to do it. And I'm saying, if that is what you wish to do, well, you can go there at night after hours. You can go early mornings before the stream opens. But why on earth would you want to be down there naked, hardback man and woman, when you have a bus full of tourists or people who are there? I mean, why should we have to have these discussions, ladies and gentlemen? To me, these are matters which just common sense and common decency should dictate. Some are saying Nevis must be the Nevis of 100 years ago. That can't happen. The island has moved on. It has progressed. And I'm not saying that we abandon our culture. But if there are aspects of our culture that we have to adjust in order to deal with the modern situation that we now face, then let us do it. We introduce some rules. For example, we advise that it is inappropriate and unhelpful to use soaps and chemicals in the pools because the water that is in there is natural. It's natural spring water. It has in natural chemicals. That's the whole purpose about it. And we know that the water flows. So if you're upstream using your soap and your alcalada and your whatever it is you're using, that is flowing down onto people who are downstream. So again, we're just saying to people, be reasonable with us, work with us. We're not trying to be rude or obnoxious or difficult with anybody, but for God's sake, work with us. We're trying to improve. That's what we're trying to do. And our people, on the one hand, say they want development and they want progress, and on the other hand, so many of them. Fortunately, only a few, but that few tends to be a noisy few. And they want to fight and they want to carry on. Nobody going to tell them this and nobody going to tell them that. We are just trying to work to improve, to make things better, to make it more enjoyable. And which of us here, let us be honest, members of the press, would feel good taking their young daughter or their young son down to the Bath stream and say, let us go there on a Sunday and just go to the Springs Cafe and have something to eat and read a book and use the stream. And then you see some big man and woman down there naked. It's not right. It's not helpful. And it just requires a minor adjustment. That's all it requires. And so we're just encouraging people. And I know I got some backlash even from some of my constituents in Bath Village. Oh, I come with change. We're not changing. We're trying to improve things. We used to ride donkey. Now we drive car. We used to walk school barefoot. Now we wear shoes. Improvements. And that's what the island has to be about. And I'm just encouraging our people to embrace what we've done. Because when you go to the Bath Stream, it is such a beautiful place. It's an oasis of calm in a world now that is so volatile and so unpredictable. And so we encourage our people, please, to work with us. Now, part of the difficulty, and perhaps it was a lack of foresight on our part, is that we had locals, that is, Nevisians and Kittians, nationals are free to use the Bath Stream. And then we had visitors, that is, non-locals, having to pay $5. But there was a category in between that we didn't provide for, and that is people who are resident here, but don't have any credentials as a citizen here. But they live here. They make their contribution here. And so today, I'm here to announce that we've now introduced a non-national resident rate. And that will be $5 EC or US $2. So put differently, citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis will be free. If you live here in St. Kitts and Nevis, it will be $5 EC or the US $2. And if you are a visitor, that is, you live overseas, and you're clearly then not a resident, and you're not a citizen, then you would pay $5 US. So, someone said to me, I'm from St. Kitts and Nevis, but I happen to live in Canada. So when I come home, I got to pay? My suggestion is you should be offering to pay to help develop your little island that you left here. But you don't have to pay because you are a citizen, once you have your evidence of your citizenship. We do have, of course, nevertheless, a donation basket there that we also encourage people to make donations. So even if it's free for you to enter, please. still make a contribution, recognizing that these things cost a lot for us to put in place. So just to recap, citizens remain free, citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. Residents will have to pay 5 EC dollars or 2 US dollars, and visitors will pay 5 US dollars. Please note that we will require some proof of residency to obtain these concessionary rates, and we will be introducing a weekly pass, which will cost EC $25 or US $10, and a monthly pass, which will cost EC $80 or US $30. And that's for people who are resident here. And if you realize that the weekly pass at EC $25 gives a discount, because a week is 7 days, and if you were paying by the day, it would be $5 per day. But you could pay by the week and get it for $25. And some people, I'm told, go there every day. And so we encourage them to take advantage of this. Ladies and gentlemen, let me quickly advise that the Cottle Church is having a what they call congregation experience, a collection of 13 inspiring blankets, in honor of our ancestors. They're created by someone called Cyle, C-Y-L-E Warner. Is that Cyle or Kyle? I'm not sure how you'd pronounce that. But C-I-L-E Warner of New York, and who is a product of the Federation. They'll have eats and drinks, and the entry is $20. It will be from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday, May 3rd at the Cottle Church. Dress code, Caribbean Creative. That's a dress code, so you can be creative in your Caribbean wear. Let me end, ladies and gentlemen, by reporting very proudly that we continue to experience a boom in tourism on the island of Nevis. And for the month of March, our 2% tourism levy yielded an unprecedented $565,378.07. That is, I'm advised, over 200,000 more than it would have yielded last year at the same time. And I think that that is very significant. It says that we're moving in the right direction. And I believe even as we speak, the Four Seasons would just have come out, or was it just have started? Just have come out, I think, of a sold-out environment down there. Or to use the Four Seasons terminology, they were fully committed. And I like the notion that you're fully committed. So, ladies and gentlemen, those are my few updates, and I now take your questions.
Good morning, Mr. Premier, and good morning to everyone who's present.
Good morning.
Shamika Bajin, Vaughan Radio. Mr. Premier, what is the status of the following hotels on Nevis? Windham, Nisbet's Plantation in St. James, Old Manor, and I think that one will be or should be constructed in India Castle in Gingerland. Also, what is the status on the Gingerland Health Clinic? Can you provide an update on the geothermal project? I think the last update was that the government was waiting on the completion of the bidding process. And that's it for me for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Budgeon. Status on these various projects. The Windham project that had originally been proposed for St. James, that project went into some, how should I say, a bit of a lull. And then they revived the project, but at a new location. They're now saying that they want the project now to be located next to the St. Thomas's Primary School, so on what we call Paradise Beach. The last I'm aware of that is that they were going through the planning process. They had submitted plans. They were having the environmental impact assessment done. In fact, I believe there was actually a meeting, a public meeting that occurred in relation to that project, but I don't have any further updates at this point on it, except that last I gathered, it was going through the necessary legal process for planning and approval. The Nisbet project is one that is very important because, as we know, Nisbet has been the grand dam of hotel projects on the island. The Nisbet property was purchased late last year by some developers who had it under contract for quite a few years prior to the purchase. They purchased it late last year, and they have not really advanced that development because we've been having a series of conversations with them. They have expressed the concern that the airport development will impact in a negative way their development. We do not share that concern, but as a consequence of that, we've had a number of conversations back and forth with technical teams, with the owners, the new owners of the property, to determine where we can resolve those concerns that they have. As I said, those concerns are not shared on our side because we are not in any way impinging or trespassing on any property that is Nisbet's property. But Nisbet has expressed the concern, the new owners that is, that the extended airport will now create noise and other concerns for them and their development. So we're looking at it. We, of course, take stakeholders very seriously. This is a development that is important to the island of Nevis. We want it to proceed. It has been delayed for a very, very long time. But we also need our airport facility constructed for the future of this island and the advancement. Bearing in mind that the last major infrastructural work done at the Van Sammer International Airport was over 20 years ago. Aviation has moved on since then, and we think that our plan now to develop a private jet facility and to be able to attract direct flights from Miami using the Embraer regional jet aircraft, that plan is something that's workable and something that we have clearly embarked upon. And before you get back up to ask me where we are on the airport, we anticipate that we should be able to break ground very, very shortly. We have had a number of what I would call administrative holdups on the land acquisition. Administrative in that we have secured funding, we've been told that the funding is there, but the drawdown of those funds, we've met one, this clause needs to be tweaked and little things like those. But I was advised last week that we had finally come to the end of those issues, and so I'm hopeful that we'll be able to draw down shortly. An individual will be able to collect the monies that are owed to them for their lands. Of course, we must acquire the lands before we can proceed. And so we anticipate, Ms. Budgeon, that we will be able to proceed with that very, very shortly. And I'm hopeful that we could have a groundbreaking ceremony in June. And if we can achieve that, then the construction period is intended to be 18 months. So I'm still optimistic that by the tourism season of 2026 tourism season, if we can get going this June, we should be in a position to move forward. Right? Yeah, 2026 will be 12 months, and the 6 months, that is this year, will give us about 18 months. So that's the idea. Old Manor really is never been up for consideration by us, simply because Old Manor is private property. It has been there sitting now for, I'm sure, well over a decade. And I am not sure what the owners are doing with it. We've had various people showing interest, but the government has not really been involved in the Old Manor property. Indian Castle, we are having some very detailed discussions. Now, I'm not in a position to make an announcement, but I hope to be shortly in a position to make an announcement in relation to Indian Castle and what we anticipate can happen there. Status on the Gingerland Clinic, I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm not sure there's that I will advise of any problems at the Gingerland Clinic. I know that we had some renovation that were being done. As far as I know, those are ongoing. And I would anticipate that, in fact, by now, they should be nearing completion of those. But I have not had an update on that. Things tend to come to me by way of update only when there's a problem. So I don't anticipate that there's any difficulty there. The geothermal project, you're right, and my update remains what I gave on the last occasion. And we are, I can say, closer now because the bids should be opened by the 8th of May. I think that's the date, Pierce, that I'm given, the 8th of May. So various companies, I'm told we have 9 or so companies are bidding on the production well drilling. And so we anticipate that by the 8th of May. So God willing, by the next press conference, I should be able to tell you what those bids look like how many companies would have bid. I should also say that early next month, I've been invited to Miami to speak at the CREF conference and to address specifically geothermal and what we are doing in that regard. And so I look forward certainly to that very important engagement and to be able to have updates to give at that engagement in Miami when it happens. Any other questions for me?
Good morning, Premier.
Good morning, Mr. Bart.
Glenn Bart from SKN Newsline. Mr. Premier, sometime last week, I believe it was, a video clip appeared on social media showing a Miss Pasture Williams on a show talking about her visit to Nevis, but she spoke more about St. Kitts. But the issue really is, I guess, is the way in which it was done, in which she referred to her visit to Nevis. In some instances, she seemed not to know where she was in the Federation, that she was on Nevis. And she seemed not to promote Nevis in a good way. My question is this: what are your views on this kind of situation, and how does this factor into future endeavors in which we have celebrities of some sort involved in promoting our country, St. Kitts, whether it's St. Kitts or Nevis? Now, there is also a situation which has re-emerged again with regards to Culturama. I have been made aware that some service providers have still not received payment for their services, and they're getting very concerned. As small business operators, they say it puts a lot of pressure on them because they do have to meet expenses. And when it takes this long, they're now beginning to wonder, should they continue to participate, to make bids, or whatever the process is in this year's program. My question to you is, first, how quickly can those persons be paid? And secondly, are there likely to be any changes in the procedures and payments for people who provide services in this year's Culturama? I'll leave it there for now.
Okay, Mr. Bart, thank you very much. In relation to the video clip of Pasture Williams, I'm not entirely sure why you're asking me. If Pasture did not know where she was, then I can't tell you why Pasture would not know where she was. I had nothing to do with Miss Williams. The Nevis Island Administration, nor our tourism authority, had anything to do with Miss Williams being here. Miss Williams would have come on her, for whatever purpose, and being some form of celebrity, she would have gone back and she would have been interviewed and it appeared not to remember where she visited. I would have looked on her Instagram and she was posting lots of videos and photos from Nevis. In fact, she posted photos at the Bath Hotel. She posted videos at the pool at Four Seasons. She was saying what a great holiday she was having. And for me, what was acutely embarrassing for her, not for Nevis, but for her, is that the people who were interviewing her, the clip that you talked about, were actually Kelly Ripper and her husband Mark Consuelo, who used to spend a lot of time in Nevis, very familiar with Nevis. And so when Kelly asked her, so did you get over to Nevis? And she said no. And her husband asked, did you see the monkeys? It was clear that I think there was a moment when she probably lost just track of reality. I suspect, however, that the reason you're asking me the question, Mr. Bart, is because of the insidious nature of these breaking news stories that political propagandists continue to put out. Because I saw a whole article that somebody sent me saying that I ought to be embarrassed because we paid to bring Pasture Williams to Nevis and Pasture Williams embarrassed us. It was all a lie. the NIA had nothing to do with Miss Williams coming. So, Mr. Bart, if you were to decide tomorrow to go to Jamaica, and you were to post to your personal pages that you're in, you're enjoying yourself at the pool and all of that, and then you were to come back and somebody were to ask you, how was your trip to Jamaica? And you say, well, I did not go to Jamaica, I went to Trinidad. I don't see how that becomes an issue for the government, because the government had no involvement in that. I don't see anybody calling Andrew Holness in Jamaica, asking him, why Glenn Bart say he was in Trinidad when in fact he was in Jamaica. But this is the nature of the propaganda. And I remember speaking to a representative from WinFM some weeks ago at this press conference and suggesting to her that sometimes this political mischief infects what I would call the legitimate media. And when we see breaking news, 'cause that's a term now, I see another rag sheet keeps saying, oh, outrage erupts. These kinds of things are intended to attract and unfortunately found their way into the mainstream media when there's absolutely no truth to it, none whatsoever. So I want to make it pellucid that the NIA, the Nevis Tourism Authority, the Ministry of Tourism, we had no contact with Miss Williams, no part of her being here. She would have come. I'm told she was at the Four Seasons. Based on her Instagram, she would have posted. And then, of course, in the interview, she clearly forgot which island she visited. That's on her. I have nothing to do with that, and I hope that her memory comes back in good stead, in good time. When we reach out to celebrities as government, or we reach out to anyone else as government to engage, we will have very clear guidelines as to what that engagement would look like. So, for example, you would have heard us from time to announce ambassadors, and somebody like Candy Carter, who we say is a diversity ambassador for her. It's very clear what that engagement looks like. In fact, Ms. Carter is not being paid by us. They tend to be honorific positions. And so that's what we do in Nevis. So again, we had nothing to do with Ms. Williams' visit. We hope that she enjoyed herself while she was here. It looked that way from her IG postings, and we're hopeful that when her memory comes back, that she will say something about Nevis. But that's on her, not on me, not on us, not on Nevis. The situation with Culturama. Mr. Bart, again, sometimes these things, I don't know quite how to respond, because anybody who's been involved with Culturama for any time understands that there is usually a delay in payments. It's not something new. Culturama celebrated 50 years last year. And it has occurred every year. In fact, in the House at the budget debates last year, which happened in December, I was able to outline year after year when final payments were made. We have had examples of final payments being made as late as July in the following year, under a different government, not this government. We have tried our very best to make the payments, but sometimes we have exigencies that occur. We have issues in terms of cash flow, etc. I have had a conversation up to last week with the Ministry of Finance, and what they've said to me is that most of our smaller vendors have been paid off in full. The problem that continues to persist has to do with a lot of the larger vendors. And just so people understand that we have vendors who charge Culturama as much as $200,000 and $300,000 sometimes for whatever they provide. So what we do with those larger vendors is we tend to pay them sort of in installments. But nobody can say they have not been paid anything. They may argue that they have not been paid in full. But what we have tried to do is to pay. So the smaller vendors, I'm advised. PS Doe, if you're listening, if I'm not being advised wrongly, you're going to have to take the hit on this. But I spoke to PS Doe, PS in Finance, and he advised that the smaller vendors have largely been satisfied. And the larger vendors are the ones that are still owed money, and we're trying to pay them in installments as we go. I made a commitment the last time I was here, if I recall, that we would be paid up this month. And I'm still sticking to that commitment. I'm still hopeful that by this month, April, we would be done with that. If it spills over into early May, I apologize, but that was our intention, to have everybody paid off. But the outrage that I'm hearing is really feigned. It's fake outrage. I'm not suggesting, Mr. Bart, that people are not to be paid as soon as they do something. But I'm saying Culturama has had a particular process over the years where people anticipate. Most times by December, people are paid off. This year, unfortunately, we've gone over into the new year. But that's what we try to do. December is normally the time. But it happens every single year. And I challenge anyone out there to point out to me one year when everybody got paid in August as soon as Culture Arm was finished. That's never the case. Right? It's never the case. And I don't know if that happens in St. Kitts. I don't know where it happens. But it's never the case in Nevis. There's always some delay. And I just want the public to be patient with us. People know that they will get their money. And I heard a lot of noise being made in some quarters, but a lot of it is fueled by the politics, not really the practical situation on the ground. Because whether it's us in government or somebody else in government, it's always been the case. As I said, we have one example where the final payments were not made until July of the following. That is the start of another culture arm, right? But people participate and they understand that these are some of the shortcomings. But we'll continue to work on it. And I make that commitment to get people their money. We have said by the end of this month. We're at the end of the month now, so I don't know where things are. I'll have to check. But certainly, I'm told the small vendors have all been satisfied. And it's the larger, the $200,000 and $300,000 vendors who we are paying over time. But every vendor, I'm advised, has received some money, even if they've not received the full amount as yet. And we continue to make efforts to get them paid off.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Elke Hewlett, Department of Information. Nevis recently gained approval for the Charlestown proposal for the aged-friendly cities. What does this mean for Nevis and our seniors and potential expats looking to retire in Nevis? The opposition asked, I think it was at the last sitting of the Nevis Island Assembly, about the final cost of the Alexandra Hospital expansion. Has that cost been finalized as yet? You would have returned from an official trip to New York over the weekend. Can you tell us about that visit? The NIA purchased, I think it was 36 acres of land for housing in Garner's estate. I stand to be corrected on the location. Has any infrastructural work started as yet, and how many housing lots are anticipated for those lands? Has the NIA cabinet had a chance to assess the fair share or revenue share report as yet, and has a date been set for you to meet with the Prime Minister to discuss that report? How is the government's financing for development of the island been impacted by having to pay $30 million to resolve the Rest Haven matter, and has the NIA given any thought as to what that piece of real estate can be used for in the future? STEP Nevis is hosting the STEP Caribbean Conference in 2025 in about 2 weeks. Can you shed some light on this event and how it impacts Nevis's financial services industry? And those are my very few questions.
Must be that few has a new definition, Ms. Hewlett. As I say, you have not left anything to be asked. So, age-friendly cities. I am actually very pleased that you've raised that, because I would want to commend the Honorable Janet Elizabeth and her team that they would have engaged with this process. And I suspect that it has not really got the traction in the press that I think it deserves. That Nevis, and more specifically the town of Charlestown, is now the only city designated by the World Health Organization as an age-friendly city in the entire OECS region. It is the first and only in the OECS. And that was based on a review that was done on what we provide in terms of elderly care and support on the island of Nevis. And so I think it says a lot that this little island has demonstrated such excellence in terms of taking care of our elderly, that the WHO, the World Health Organization, has decided to designate Charlestown in the island of Nevis as the very first OECS town that is deemed age-friendly. And so I think that that's a significant, significant accolade for the Ministry of Health and Gender, which also, of course, deals with our seniors. And I have said in the past, Ms. Hewlett, that our seniors program are the envy of the region. And this accolade is an international recognition of what we have been doing here on the island of Nevis. The final cost of the Alexandra Hospital, I'm going to delay that answer. The reason for that is that I can confirm that we now have the necessary information. We have 2 bids that have come in. We were waiting on some information, if you recall, from the Taiwanese. That information is now in hand, but it has not yet been evaluated by the cabinet. So it has been shared with the cabinet, but not yet dealt with. And so I would prefer to come back and let you know once the cabinet deliberations are complete. But I can say that the information that we were waiting on, we now have it. It has been provided to us. And I had given previous updates to say that we were waiting on some information. So, I'm sorry?
An idea of what
The information is about costing. It's about what it would require to get us to the end of this project that we've committed to finalizing. So we want to restart the project this year and, of course, take it to completion. And we wanted to know what the cost was, what the steps that we needed to take, and to get professional expertise to bear on that. So the Taiwanese would have come. I think they made 2 visits to the island, and we're waiting on them. So they've now come back to us to tell us exactly what is what the amounts would be, etc. And as I said, we had a previous quotation as well. So we now have 2 that we can work with, and we're evaluating those. And I'll be pleased to come back once we're in a position to make an announcement as to when we start and how we're going to finance the project and take it to the end. But this is a project, I remind you, that we are very committed to finalizing. So we have the information now. It's just for us to take some decisions and then to report back to the public. My trip to New York, you're correct, I would have gone to New York. I was invited as a guest to the Boston College Wall Street alumni event, and that event would have occurred last week Wednesday. I would have therefore gone up to New York. I arrived into New York last week Tuesday late at night, and would have left on Friday morning at 4 a.m. to come back. While I was there, I attended that event, and I also attended a number of meetings associated with the Indian Castle proposed development. The event at Wall Street was very useful. It was a good networking event, and the reason for me being at Boston College's networking event, gala event in Wall Street was really because some of the people that are involved in some projects that we are proposing for Nevis are Boston College alums. And they have visited, they have connected us with other people in the legal fraternity and also in the development and real estate development fraternity. And it was thought that it was a good environment for the Premier to come and to meet some of these individuals. In fact, I'll tell you that our Candy Carter, whom you heard me mention a lot, she's a Boston College alum. And through her efforts, the island of Nevis has been reaping significant benefits already. For example, one gentleman who in fact was one of the co-hosts of that dinner, he came here with I think nearly 24 family members and rented some villas at Four Seasons, and I gather spent a significant amount of money because it was recommended to them by Miss Carter. I had the opportunity to engage with him and his wife and some of his children who had come here, his relatives who had come here, and they have said that they will be back in April. So they have fallen in love. It was their first trip, and they're coming back. And so there are a number of people there. We're trying also to persuade Boston College to say to them that they can have they tend to have these retreats for the board, that they can certainly do look at Nevis as a potential for those types of events as well. So I think it was a good opportunity just to meet some of the movers and shakers, and I was very grateful to have the honor of being invited there and to meet some rather interesting people. I met, for example, some individuals who said that they had been going to Anguilla for many, many years, but had never come to Nevis. So they are now committed to coming over to Nevis to see what we have to offer. So it's all about partly tourism, partly investment and development. That was the purpose of the trip. And then, as I say, we are hopeful that we're on the home stretch to make an announcement for something at Indian Castle. And so I was there. We're working on the necessary agreements in relation to that as well. The 36 acres at Ghana's, it is 36 acres. And I do not have an update on that in terms of the number of lots, because the last I was told by our Minister of Lands, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, is that they were doing the subdivision. So they're still looking at really trying to ascertain how many lots they can get out of it. it is intended to be a higher end residential community, because of course it is there in the University Heights area. And the intention behind it is that we are looking at different models, but one possibility is that we won't be doing the usual model of house and land, but rather we'll sell the lots and allow people the opportunity to build what they want in their own time. That was the original model at Prospect, for example, in St. John's, where the NHLDC sold land and people built up their homes over time, rather than the NHLDC also undertaking the construction of the house. So the idea really is that people, especially those here and those abroad, who want to get a piece of the rock, will be able to purchase. So those 36 acres, we hope, are going to go very fast. I did tell the minister to work fast and see if we could have it ready for Culturama when people are going to be home, but we'll wait and see whether that's going to happen. So we're encouraging people, when the lots become available, to snap them up. It's an excellent location, great views, up in the hills, very cool, and I think that people will find it a good place to invest and live. The fair share report, as I confirmed, I now have the report. It has been shared with the cabinet, but we have not yet discussed it in large measure because I would have traveled, last week, would have been away last week, and prior to that, my colleague, the Honorable Spencer Brand, had been away. He had taken a bit of a personal break. I think he went to celebrate his 25th anniversary of his wedding, which I think was a useful and important reason for him to be off for a few days. So we are hopeful that we will be able to consider that this week, and then thereafter we'll be able to engage with the federal government on it. But we do have the report, and members, it has been shared with members already. The government financing and this $30 million Rest Haven debacle, I have spoken about this from time to time, Ms. Hewlett. It was a reckless decision to acquire Rest Haven without any plan. We found, when we got into government, no indication as to why the previous government troubled the people and their property. The property was already, at that point, out of service. It was not functioning as a hotel, and yet they went and acquired the property. They said in the public announcement it was acquired for touristic development, but what that touristic development was supposed to be, we don't know. Who the developers were supposed to be, we don't know. Who the investors were supposed to be, we don't know. There was no information. And we've asked, who are these people? Why was this land acquired? Nobody can give us an explanation. But the acquisition perhaps was a horrible decision, but what was even more horrible is that they paid not one penny, consistent with the approach taken by the then government, led by the Honorable Joseph Parry, the NRP government, that they would acquire people's land but not pay them as mandated by law. And so across this island, I think it was 13 different pieces of property were taken from people without one penny being paid. In fact, there's a lot of land now, a lot of land, a land lot, down at Jessop's Bay, that we are currently, today in 2025, paying off the owner for. Because that gentleman living in St. Martin had his land taken from him way back in 2008 and was never paid a penny. And we have been forced into all these negotiations with people. In some instances, we have tried to give people back their land because we could find no use for it. It's just as if the government went on a rampage. 13 pieces of land all across Nevis were taken by the NRP. None of them paid for. None. And that was a problem by the time we got into government in 2013 to try and deal with this Rest Haven thing. We met litigation that had to be settled. We had to have no evaluation done. And that valuation put that piece of land at, I believe it was 5.6 or 5.7 million US dollars. And then now, of course, the interest. Because his interest now going back to when it was acquired in 2007, 2008. And we now have to deal with that burden because up to now, we can't find a reason, a developer, an investor, a partner. Why was Rest Haven taken? And if it was taken, why was no money paid? So we have been trying to deal with that. So short answer is that what it has done, it has added significantly to our debt. And that $30 or so million that is owed there has carried up our debt quite significantly. So our debt, which was teetering at, I think, below $500 million, has been pushed over to that range now. And my math isn't that great, but 30 million out of 500 million works out at what in terms of a percentage? 50 million would have been 10%. So 30 million is probably around what, 6%? 6-7%. So just imagine that these decisions in one fell swoop added 6 to 7% to our national debt. Bad decisions have consequences for us. Government is continuous, so we must deal with it. But I continue to point out that it was an incomprehensible decision to go and take these 2 acres of land with no plan, no investor, no development, no developer, nothing, and take it and then not pay for it. That's the kind of reckless, irresponsible, illegal activity that used to happen here on the island of Nevis. We now have to clean up that mess. STEP 2025 will be happening at the Marriott. It's being sponsored by the Nevis Island Administration and our STEP Nevis. STEP Nevis is the only STEP association in St. Kitts and Nevis. And it is being spearheaded in large measure by our legal advisor, Helen Lewis. She's a senior person within STEP, and so she's chairing that conference. It's an excellent opportunity, Ms. Hewlett, for the Nevisian service providers to showcase their products and to showcase the jurisdiction. We intend at that event to launch a new website. We intend at that event to launch what we're calling, what is the Nevis Finance? Yes, thank you so much. Nevis Finance. And the intention really is to create a one-stop shop, if you will, for financial services for the island of Nevis. We've seen similar, in BVI Finance, Cayman, etc. So we are taking a page out of those very successful jurisdictions book and launching Nevis Finance, launching a new website. And we hope at that time to also be launching some new products that we hope to offer. So the intention really is that that will be definitely a coming out party for Nevis and for financial services on the island of Nevis. Any further questions for me?
Shamika Bajin, Vaughan Radio, and Mr. Premier, I'm back. Now, I will not be asking about the airport project this time, but I will be asking about the fire truck situation. I think that the fire truck at the airport developed some mechanical issue or issues on Easter Monday, April 21st. And following the incident, I think that NASPA issued a statement saying that the issue was rectified. Now, Mr. Premier, such an issue should have never happened. While we understand that the purchasing of fire trucks fits under the purview of the Ministry of National Security, is the NIA in conversation with the federal government to get a brand new one instead of St. Kitts sending over a used one? If possible, as Minister of Finance, can we have a brief overview of how the NIA is spending its money, considering you have indicated on a few occasions that you're trying to eliminate wastage? Thus far for 2025, how are we managing our public debt? Have increments started for civil servants? As a consequence, back to the fire truck situation as well, sorry. I think as a consequence, Winier couldn't have landed. I think on Easter Monday, Cape Air landed, but Winier was unable to. So let me just put that in. Also, in addition, in the heart of Charlestown, around the area of the square, close to Buddy's restaurant, also the water department area opposite the square, and even on the bayfront, where the Jamaican bakery is. Mr. Premier, it smells awful. Can we have the drains washed, or how often do they get washed? And can we have an update on the Charleston Police Station project? I drove there a few days ago, and I realized it looks like I'm seeing painting the outside of the building, but can you provide an update? Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Budgeon. The fire truck situation, let me deal with that, because frankly, I think, again, you say this should not happen. And I wish that I could tell you that in life, things should not happen. But the reality is that things do happen. If you drive a car, Ms. Budgeon, I'm pretty sure that you could have serviced your car, and then you go in and the car will not start, because things happen. That's the nature of life. It's a mechanical issue. It's a piece of equipment. And none of us could stand here and guarantee that a piece of equipment will not develop problems from time to time. We just can't. This fire truck had an issue some time ago with its braking mechanism. That issue was resolved. And just so that I explain to the public, the airport was not closed. What the absence of the fire truck did was it restricted the size of aircraft that can come in. So that is why KPA would have landed, but not Winier, because Winier was over the size. I heard a lot of hullabaloo about the fact that we had to restrict operations at the airport whilst the truck was fixed. The truth is, you're right, Winier could not land on that particular day. But by the very next day, the airport was back in full operation, because the mechanics came over from St. Kitts and the problem with the truck was resolved. Right? So I think sometimes we need to just take a deep breath and take a step back and recognize that equipment fails. I was watching the news some weeks ago. There was a fire in some room outside Heathrow, and the entire Heathrow airport, an international airport, one of the busiest in the world, shut down for a whole day. I didn't hear nobody cussing the Prime Minister of England and carrying on as if, well, because people recognize things happen. Things happen, not things that are planned or as a result of anybody's failure, but things happen. So in this instance, the fire truck developed a problem. The problem was resolved in less than 24 hours. And so a lot of the, I call it hullabaloo. In Nevis, you go down the road and rain fell last night and there's a pothole. And oh, it is the worst thing in the world, and this government is incompetent because a pothole has developed. We go back, we fix the pothole, not a soul come back to say, oh, the pothole was sorted. The Van Sam International Airport was back in operation the next day. Full operation, I should say, because we never stopped operating. The very next day, Winier was able to come in. So, I understand that people would have some anxiety, especially if the people who are traveling on Winier. I understand. But I think, again, a lot of the noise that is made out there, we just have to cut through the noise sometimes and say, listen, let's be practical. Let's be sensible about this. Equipment is what it is, and equipment will have failures from time to time. You work at Vaughan Radio. I'm pretty sure sometimes you have a difficulty out there with your console, with the tower, with something. And all you do is what everybody else does. You call in your technicians. Please come in and sort this out. And that's what we did. And it was sorted out by the very next day. So are we going to pretend as if these things do not happen? We can, because we are reasonable individuals and we know that these things happen from time to time. Another myth that I think has been pushed out there is that the tender at the Van Sam International Airport is a responsibility of the Ministry of National Security. That is not the truth. The Ministry of National Security is responsible for fire tenders on the island of Nevis that are serving the public, meaning the general public. The tenders that are at the Van Sam International Airport are the responsibility of NASPA, because we can't move them from the airport. They're not there for general use. If a fire breaks out tomorrow anywhere on the island, you would ask for the tender in Charlestown or whatever to respond. Fire could be raging right there in Newcastle, and unless we're going to break the rules, the airport tender has to remain at the airport. That's a requirement under ICAO standards for us to have the airport accredited. It must have not just a fire tender, but a fire tender of a particular size. So that is the responsibility of NASPA. And I can say to you, Ms. Budgeon, and to the public that we have already embarked on the necessary exploration. We knew that we would have to do it for the expanded airport. Okay? So we always anticipated that we'd have to do it, but we were delaying any order of any fire truck until we were in a position next year to be dealing with the expanded airport and the requirements, because we will have to boost up our firefighting capacity in order for those larger planes to come in. Otherwise, they can't come, because under ICAO standards, they will not be able to come. So we know what we need to do, but we have now brought that search forward to see. And just so the public understands, a new fire tender, which will serve a category, between a category 5 and 7 airport, which we will fall into that category, it's about 1.2 million US dollars. And then there's some smaller ones, what they call rapid response. Those are coming in at about 400,000 or 500,000 US dollars. So in terms of what we're going to need over there, I think it will be in the order of about 2 million US dollars. So it's not cheap. It's not something that you just get up and say, well, we need one, so let's go to the deal and acquire one. It is a matter that requires some planning on our part. But I want to just assure the public that these things do happen, and when they do happen, we respond as any prudent, sensible government would respond. And again, all the noise you heard being made, the issue was resolved in less than 24 hours. And you didn't hear anybody come back to say, yes, it was resolved. So we had to explain to the public that it was much ado at the end of the day about nothing, given that equipment will fail from time to time. So we are in conversation. You asked if we get in conversation to get a new truck. Yes, we're in conversation. But as I said, we have brought that conversation forward. We had anticipated to have those conversations next year, but we now have brought them forward, given that we're having had these difficulties with the fire truck over there. How are we spending our money? How are we managing our public debt? I think that we have been doing okay. I am waiting to get the quarterly report from the Ministry of Finance. I've not yet seen that. I've asked for it. But Nevis has been very good over the years of servicing our debt and ensuring that our debts are paid, especially to our established lenders overseas and those locally. So I think that in the main, we have continued to perform creditably, but through initiatives that I have announced, like the increase in tourism and development levy, the increase in the cost of financial services, and trying to grow the economy. While we also do that, we're also trying to increase our revenue, because the demands continue to grow. Right? Fire truck breakdown, where do you find $2 million US? It was not budgeted for this year. You I don't know, find it. So those are some of the difficulties we face as government, dealing with the day-to-day exigencies. But I'm satisfied that thus far we're doing fine, and absent some exogenous shock, some unexpected upheaval of some kind, I think the island will continue to progress, and I'm anticipating that the projects that we have to announce in short order will add to that in terms of construction and activity that we expect to see on the island. Have increments started? I'm advised yes, that those have restarted already as committed to, and so our public servants should be benefiting from those increments. I think those would have started this month, if memory serves. You said the heart of town and around the square, that there's a smell. I will certainly take that back to the Ministry of Health. I do know that they are charged with doing periodic flushing of drains in Charlestown. Normally on a Sunday they would do it with the fire department. I'm not sure what the schedule on that is, but certainly I'll say that to them. The Charlestown Police Station project, the last update I had is that they were in the finishing stages now. So you're correct that they're doing things like painting and the cosmetic work. And I anticipate that that should be available to the police in short order, certainly this year. And I'm hopeful that by Culturama they'll be instituted at their original and proper place, which is the Charleston Police Station. So just what you're seeing, I'm seeing as well. In addition, I think the Honorable Spencer Brand would have done a tour there, and he would have reported back to us that we anticipate that we are now in the final furlong of that very, very long project. The project had been delayed, but we anticipate now that it will be finished. And just to add that the project is a federal project. It's a national security project. Although our public works has assisted, it is really a national project that we embarked upon there at the Charleston Police Station.
So seeing that it's so close to completion, do you have a timestamp?
I don't have a time frame. No, I don't have. I have not asked. I was merely told that they are now in the finishing stages. So the painting, you know, the cosmetic work that's done at the end of a project, that's where they are. So the hard construction is done, from what I'm gathering. So I would say if they're painting all that, I don't anticipate it should be more than another month or so before the building should be ready. But I've not been told that officially. So I am always loath to give information that I would have not confirmed. But that is the intention, that they are at a stage now where they're nearing completion of that. Anything further from me, ladies and gentlemen?
Mr. Premier, just last week, the Medicinal Cannabis Authority was launched, and it is one of its responsibilities involve licensing in various categories for persons who will be participating in that new industry on St. Kitts and Nevis. However, already some criticism have begun to emerge with regards to the cost of the licenses. Now, granted, they have made a carve-out for the Rastafarian groups, but for other persons, they're saying that the prices are extremely high, extravagant. One person puts it. My question to you, therefore, is this: from your perspective, from your opinion, with regards to promoting the development of an industry like this, do you see the level of licenses to be an inhibition to the general growth and participation of local nationals who are resident on the island, compared to perhaps facilitating a foreign investor coming in to basically be part of this kind of industry? The other thing is, not too long ago, an NRP candidate spoke on one of their shows with regards to the poultry facility on Nevis, and indicated that the CCM-led NRP Nevis Island administration, the CCM-led Nevis Island administration was unable to bring forth this poultry facility. I just simply need to know what actually is the situation with regards to that. 'Cause I remember that you did mention it several months ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Mr. Bart, let me start where we left off. The poultry facility, that's still very much on track. And we anticipate that we should be in a position to make an announcement as the start of that. The difficulty that we had was twofold. One was to determine the right facility, the right type of facility. We eventually got a quotation from a company in Canada. And the second aspect was, of course, the cost and how we're going to manage that. We've also solved that problem. So we anticipate that we should be undertaking that in short order, but that will come, no doubt, from the Minister with responsibility, the Honorable Eric Evelyn. As you know, we have identified a site for that facility, and so we expect that that facility will proceed this year. That's the expectation. The opposition does what oppositions do. They point out, this is delayed, that is delayed, why is this not happening? But of course, they are not employed. You know, they don't have jobs to go to on a daily basis, so they have time on their hands to engage in that. We, on the other hand, are in government. We have things to do. We come to work every day. We have decisions to take. We have events. We have planning to do. And so it's one thing to just criticize, because that's all they do. If you realize, if you say you listen to the shows, and there's so many, I can't keep up. But the shows, all the shows offer is a steady diet of criticism and attack. The shows do not offer even one suggestion or solution. And that, I think, is one of the huge failings of what passes as opposition here in the island of Nevis is that there's never a recommendation. There's never a position to voters. This is how we would do it. All they can do is criticize. And you and I both know that that's the easiest thing to do. We can stay in the pavilion all day and say the fella can't play football properly, the one who's on the field. He can't bowl properly, he can't bat properly on the cricket field. But we ourselves will never descend into the field to do anything. So criticisms are easy. All of us can criticize. But solutions, those tend to be more difficult. What I can say from my government's perspective, Mr. Bard, is we continue working. And if things don't happen right away, we are committed to making them happen. I mentioned a road earlier in my update up in Pasture. I said we got up to petitions on the road. I went there personally. I recognized how bad the road was. We simply didn't have the resources yet. And so we had to ask our people to be patient with us. But guess what? The road has now started. So sometimes things are delayed because of a number of factors, but it doesn't mean that our commitment and our effort to get it done has waned. And so we are going to continue to work here. We're going to get this poultry facility done. And as I say, we anticipate getting it done this year, starting the work on that. You mentioned the Medical Cannabis Authority. And you say already there have been some criticism. Well, you know, Mr. Bart, that's the nature of our country. You know, if our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ were to come back right now, I guarantee you that once the announcement is made by you, SK Newsline, that Jesus is back, somebody is going to come out with some breaking news saying, why Jesus come back so quick? Or saying something else about Jesus. That's the nature of St. Kitts and Nevis. So a lot of times when I hear the noise, and a lot of it is manufactured, because a lot of it is fake outrage, fake articles, right? They always talk to some interested party who had this to say and that to say. I don't really pay it any mind, because a lot of it is just propaganda. You, however, asked a legitimate question, the cost of the license. And I think that has to be carefully calibrated to ensure that you don't lock out, shut out our local people from participating. But having said that, you also need to guard against a proliferation, in my opinion, of this type of establishment. So you want to make it accessible to local entrepreneurs, but not so accessible that it becomes like people selling sugar cake or black pudding down on the corner. Because I think that will lead to other issues in terms of the level of consumption, use, and abuse, frankly, of what is a narcotic. No matter how people want to disguise it and say whatever, marijuana is a narcotic. It changes and alters your state and your chemical composition once it's in your body. So the point I'm trying to make is I think that this ought to be a result of consultations with stakeholders. And you need to be able, they've already done a carve-out, which I think was important for the Rastafarian community. But now you're talking about people now who just want to be in business doing that. What is the cost of entry into that? I think you need to pitch it at a particular level that is not too high to ensure that we are locked out as locals, but is equally not too low. Because you get it too low, I think you have another problem that arises, which is a proliferation of these dispensaries, or whatever you want to call them. And that, I think, can create its own set of problems. Because you must have the capacity to open a business dealing with cannabis where the controls that are necessary, the guidelines are followed, the policy prescriptions. It's not just decide, well, let me get a barbecue grill and go on the side of the road and start to grill chicken. This is something which should be properly controlled. And businesses therefore will have to invest in having the necessary controls in place. So you're pitching the licensing and all of that because it has to be now a legitimate business undertaking, a legitimate business venture. And the necessary controls would have to be put in place in order to ensure that we don't have, as I call it, a proliferation of these businesses selling marijuana or selling some marijuana products all across St. Kitts and Nevis. I think I would favor a model which restricts the number of participants in that aspect of it. You could have other people who are doing the cultivation. You could have other people doing the production, but in terms of the dispensary and sale, I would really favor a model that tries to keep that within manageable bounds so that you don't have, as I say, an explosion of these all across the island. And price is one of those. But I would end by saying that my preferred approach always is consultation. Meet with the stakeholders and see where you can meet them halfway in terms of pricing so as to create a balance between proliferation on the one hand if it's too cheap and locking out people on the other hand if it's too expensive. So that would be my suggestion. Anything further for me?
Elke Hewlett again, Department of Information. In light of the major upheaval in global trade and uncertainty in oil-producing countries brought on by the Trump administration policies, what is your advice to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, especially in terms of bracing for the economic impact, as you're especially the leader of the opposition for St. Kitts and Nevis? And has this brought the push for food security and renewable energy to the fore for Nevis?
Ms. Hewlett, food security and energy security are critical components for a sustainable island state, and we have been talking about those even before this global upheaval in trade that you have mentioned. So we feel, regardless of what President Trump or any other nation does, St. Kitts and Nevis needs to do more to ensure that it has greater food security and to ensure that it has greater energy security. Those two things are absolutely critical. And so perhaps though that upheaval that you've spoken to has given renewed impetus, but I certainly feel that regardless of what's happening externally, we need for our own sustainability to double down in terms of water, energy, food. People need those three in order to function effectively, and the country needs those three in order to move forward and to be sustainable. So I think that that's an essential requirement for St. Kitts and Nevis, that we continue our push in relation to that. And going back to what Mr. Bart mentioned about the broiler industry, that was one of the reasons why we said we wanted to move in that direction, to cut back on the level of importation of chicken that we were having, knowing that chicken is the most popular local meat kind. So we need to look at that and continue. My advice to our people is that I anticipate some difficulties ahead. I anticipate that there will be some real difficulties in terms of cost of living, and that I am not at this point sure whether those will be long-lasting or temporary, but I anticipate they will come. Disruption, instability invariably leads to higher prices and more difficulty. And so my advice to our people is that we must be prudent. We must be sensible about how we spend our money. We must, where we can, invest and put something aside for that proverbial rainy day. And we must, where we can, try to curb some of the expenditure that we make on some of the items that we buy. I like the question because it allows me the opportunity to encourage again our people to do more in terms of producing some of what they eat. A lot of times when we talk about food security, we are concerned with farmers and with commercial operations. But you can generate quite a bit of food just by growing something in your backyard for those who have a backyard. I can't speak for St. Kitts where you have lots of urban dwellers, but in Nevis, a lot of people in Nevis are not in the city center and therefore have backyards. And yes, I know people complain. They say we got monkeys, we got pests, and all of that is true. But everything starts with a will. And I think that if our people can grow, you can plant some banana, you can plant some lettuce, you can plant some cucumber, some pumpkin, some squash, some melon, we start to help feed ourselves. I have in my place, for example, where I live, I have some banana plants there, and sometimes I go out and I have as many as 2-3 bunches of bananas. A single bunch of banana can feed. Well, I used to be a family of 4, now a family of 3, because only 3 of us live in there now. But a bunch of banana can feed that family for a couple of days during the week. Doesn't cost a penny in terms of me going out to buy. And you imagine now if you start to multiply that across the nation and more people are doing something like that, what it can look like. And so I encourage our people to plant something. I am a great believer in this notion of backyard farming. It's good therapy, it's good exercise, and you know what you're getting is fresh. It doesn't have any chemicals and any hormones in it, and you are helping to lower your food bill. And so for me, that's one of the responses that I would encourage our people to do. We need to grow more food, and part of growing more food is not just our farmers, but ourselves need to do some of those things. But I think that our people need to brace, and then at the macro level, national and the regional level, I think we need Ms. Hewlett to move with alacrity to develop new trading routes. I believe, for example, that we have nations in South America, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, even in Panama, that are nations that produce various goods and products. And the same way we could buy orange juice from the US coming through the port of Miami, the same way we might be able to buy orange juice from South America and be able then to ship it here. But we need the shipping routes, we need the trade routes, and we need to develop them. We are never going to, and nor am I suggesting that we abandon our trading partnership with the great United States of America. But based on the instability and uncertainty that we have seen, it behooves us as a small nation and as a small region in the Caribbean, to develop new linkages, to develop new approaches. Why, for example, if something is coming to the Caribbean from Asia, that it has to first go to the port of Miami? Something is coming from Argentina, rather than coming straight across to us, it goes first to the North America and then come back to the Caribbean. We have to now start to think, and including that thinking is now for us now to decide where in the Caribbean could act as a hub. Can we take things into St. Kitts or Nevis or Antigua, and then smaller vessels take it from there? That's, I think, what the OECS and CARICOM needs to be looking at. How, logistically, we can open up new trade routes into our region and allow our people to have access to other markets where hopefully the volatility is a lot less. Just imagine, for example, if these tariffs were to bite, and let us say chicken is going from Brazil, or beef is going from Argentina, destined ultimately to rams in Nevis. That beef goes up first to the United States. Assuming the tariffs bite, it faces a tariff when it lands there. And then that beef then is purchased by rams from a supplier in the US and brought down to us. It means then that that tariff now is part of our cost. So the cost of that beef already gone up. Now what if rams were able to say to that supplier in Argentina, ship my beef directly to St. Kitts Nevis via port in the Caribbean or directly to us? You cut out now that circuitous and rather expensive route for goods and services. So that's my suggestion, that we need to look at these things and look at them carefully and prepare ourselves, because I think in the immediate term there will be some hiccups and some difficulty, and our people need to brace for that by changing patterns and changing particularly our consumption patterns. Anything further? Yeah.
My final question, it relates to renewable energy, and I'm thinking about it in a broad sense. Over the past maybe 10 years, perhaps, we have seen a sort of growth in international interest in regards to the use of renewable energy, both in terms of financing, technology, and so forth. What is driving this? Is this a product of the climate change discussion, or is it something else that is driving this new interest in renewable energy?
Mr. Bart, I think that's a very thought-provoking question. I'm not sure I can tell you with any degree of certainty what the full answer is, but I think you hit on it in the question. I think the Caribbean and the Pacific region, that we ought to be credited for making the climate crisis a global issue. We've been talking about it for a very long time, but I believe that we can now say with some degree of satisfaction and some degree of conviction based on the evidence, the empirical data, that these two regions, Pacific and Caribbean, have fought this fight. And it has been a long fight to get the industrialized countries of the world to recognize the significance of the threat of climate change. While it has been couched primarily as a threat to small island developing states, the truth is that the science suggests that it is now also being recognized as a threat to these industrialized countries as well. Threat in many ways. You look at the California fires, we look at droughts, we look at harsher winters, we look at the melting of the ice caps. All of these now are indicative that climate change is a global crisis. When it was perhaps that it was only these little islands making noise about it, talking about sargassum and talking about erosion of our coastline, etc., it might have been less relevant for large countries to engage. Now I think that large countries recognize that climate impacts them as well. I think that that has changed attitudes. And we have led that effort for a long time. I think the latest champion is my friend, Honorable Mayor Motley from Barbados. She has been out there as a champion on climate change. But there have been others before her who have really advocated for this for decades, to put it front and center. As a result of that now being front and center, the world has been forced to grapple with what do we do about it. And one of the responses to what do we do about it is renewable energy. And as we look at renewable energy, the question arises, well, how do you finance it? How do you make it possible? How do we get geothermal out of the earth in St. Kitts and Nevis to power that country and probably power others that are nearby? How do you get it out of the earth in Dominica to power Dominica and hopefully, who knows, to power Guadeloupe, which is next door? Those are the types of questions that are now being asked. Then as the world recognizes now that the world is in crisis, I think the world is now starting to respond. Much slower than a lot of us would like, but the world is starting to respond. And so when you consider the Green Climate Fund, which has now some $15 billion of funding available for climate resilient and climate projects, that could not have happened were it not for the global realization that the climate crisis is real and it potentially impacts all of us. So it's no longer saying, well, my neighbor's house is on fire, so that's a problem for my neighbor. It is now saying my neighbor's house is on fire and mine is catching fire too. So the world has woken up to the idea that global warming, climate change, the climate crisis is a global crisis. And as a consequence, the world has made some funding, still not enough, but some funding available to try and ameliorate and delay, or if we can, because I think there's some debate as to whether we could keep temperature rise at 1.5 degrees Celsius. If we can prevent further erosion of the global climate based on the warming of the atmosphere. So I think that would be my response to you, that the climate crisis becoming, certainly I would say not the number one global agenda, within the top three. No, that has spurred interest in funding and various arrangements, because if you have a problem, the next question is, well, how do we solve the problem? And one of those solutions has been renewable energy. So that is where I see things fall. Anything further for me, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to the members of the press who were here, Ms. Hewlett, of course, Mr. Bart, Ms. Budgeon, and Mr. Stewart, who's here from NTV. Thank you to the Permanent Secretary, and for others who might have sent in questions or those who are listening online. I sincerely appreciate it, and I look forward, God willing, to seeing you next month at another edition of our press conference. Thank you, and God bless you.